Hello, and welcome to a Purpose-Driven Marriage podcast. We are Duane and Nadine Stewart, and we love any and all things marriage. You've tuned into the right place if you're looking for actionable, practical tips to help you overcome real-life obstacles common to real relationships. We're here to help you strive for a marriage as God has designed it and not as the world has defined it. Because why settle for a good marriage when you can have a great one?
All right. Welcome to a Purpose-Driven Marriage podcast where we discuss all things related to love, communication, and relationships. I'm Duane.
And I'm Nadine. And in today's episode, we are going to talk about the most common word that is brought up when couples contact me asking for help with their relationship.
Yep.
Right.
Matter of fact, you did a survey, didn't you? Didn't you do like an email or survey, something like that?
Oh, yeah. I did some market research for a course that I'm creating, the Ultimate Communication Course for Couples.
Yes.
And I did this thinking I was about to do a course on a completely unrelated
totally
topic.
Different. Yep.
Yeah. And they told me, yeah, great idea, but that's not what we need.
I almost felt like you were trying to not do communication. Like, oh, everybody hears about communication. Like, okay, that's kind of played out. But you know what? It is absolutely not. That was the first and main topic that everybody said that they want to hear about. These are the things that people want to learn about.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's why I've been spending the last several months writing this course. But you know what? There is a big part of communication that a lot of people don't talk about, right? Yeah. We learn how to communicate.
Right.
We learn, the do's and the don'ts, but mostly the do's, right? What is it that we need to do better?
Right.
But the thing that we're going to talk about today is actually some of the most common communication killers. Like, what is it that is sabotaging the communication in the relationship?
Yeah.
Right, because a lot of people think, oh, I don't know how to communicate, when in fact they're probably communicating well, but then these killers are inserting themselves into the conversation and are creating conflict that wouldn't otherwise exist in that moment.
I think what's really interesting is that sometimes we do certain things that we feel, oh, that sounds great. It feels great. I feel like I'm communicating. I feel like I'm expressing my emotions or my feelings, but you don't really understand how that might feel towards your spouse. Like if I say something and it's like, okay, that was good. I felt like, I expressed my feelings in the way that I should. She should feel great about that. And all of a sudden she's like, no. Like that's not the way. You made me feel like crap. And unknowingly, we're killing the communication piece of it. And it's really hurting our relationship and our marriage.
Yeah, well, that's because people think communication's talking.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I'm talking, I'm communicating, but they have no idea if they're actually hurting the relationship in the way that they're communicating. So let's talk about some of the most common communication killers. Yeah. So the first one is criticism.
Oh, yeah.
Right? There are times when what our partner does, what our spouse does, won't necessarily please us. And so we need to be able to come up with a way to communicate to them that, hey, that is not pleasing to me.
Right.
That is hurtful towards me. That annoys me, whatever it might be. But there's a difference between criticizing and complaining.
Right.
Because complaining talks about where it is it's being done, right? We're talking about a specific action. Criticizing is now attacking the character of the other person, and that can make you feel pretty defensive. Yeah. Right? It can make you feel attacked. I mean, whatever it may make you feel, it's not good.
No doubt. And one of the things that I always think about is like, how often are you hearing me say these types of things towards you? I mean, we talk about affirmation, which I know everybody, this is one of my wife's, love languages, right? Words of affirmation. And then how many times am I saying something negative, right? And, criticism is something, yes, we it might be something that we can work on. It might be an opportunity or something like that. But I think it's really the delivery of how we do it. It's not, you always do this, and I'm pointing at you, and so you're like, listen, like if you want to complain about it, all right, well, that's fine, but it doesn't really motivate me to fix whatever you are talking about. So if we come to it with more of a constructive stance, right? Softer approach. Hey, this, when you do this, it makes me feel this way. I love the way you do that. Like maybe we can start doing those things, because that's what I love about you, right? And that's, I feel like that's a much better way to approach it than, I hate when you do this. You always do that. And then you make you feel, like never. Hey guys, never and always. It should never come out of your mouth.
Yeah, the words never and always. And, people that have a tendency to say that a lot, they tell me that they don't even realize they're saying it.
Right.
And so when I work with couples and I tell them, okay, these are some of the things that you need to do. You need to eliminate the words never and the word always from your vocabulary. It's like, my gosh, they'd get rich if they put $1 in a jar every single time they say it accidentally.
That goes to the anniversary gift.
Yeah, exactly. So using I statements versus you statements, right? Like, I feel this, versus you make me feel this, or you do this, right? So anyway, so the next communication killer is contempt. And this is when we disrespect our spouse or speak to them in a condescending tone. Like, we are alluding to the thought that we are superior to them. Yeah. We are better than them. We are talking down at them.
Yeah. And one of the things that I always think about this. I'm sorry.
The always and nevers.
Yeah,
you always
I
think
do.
about this.
I think about it this way because there are times when a wife can make a husband feel like he can't do anything right. And a lot of times it has to do with parenting, right? Parenting or doing things around the house and stuff like that. And so it's, when you're taking care of the kid, you're like, stop doing that. That's the wrong way to do it. And then, and then you take them and, now the baby's yours again. Or you're washing dishes or you're folding clothes and you're not doing it the right way. And it's like, man, well, shoot, you asked me to do it, so I'm doing it, right? But it does make you feel a certain way where it's like, all right, well, if you don't feel like I'm capable of doing these things, then I'm not going to do it then. You know what I mean? And that I think it's important to understand how those things are communicated to, like, your husband or your wife, because that definitely affects their countenance, right? And affects their feelings towards you. Yeah,
and I'm making the assumption that you're talking about other wives.
Totally.
And,
that never happened. We say always and never. That never happened in my house.
Well, if it did, I've grown.
Yes.
Right? I've grown. I've gotten better.
Well, our first kid was 22 years ago, so we learned from that.
That was a long time ago.
Yeah.
Yes, we are a work in progress ourselves. Yeah, because that contempt is really disrespectful, right? And so that can cause people to grow bitter, can grow resentful, right? Like what you were saying, well, shoot, if you don't think I can do it well enough, then you do it then.
Yeah. I remember, I don't know why this popped up just now, but I remember I was at a soccer game and it wasn't us, but a couple got out of their car, going to the soccer game, little kid, little PD or whatever is about to play a game, and the husband must have forgotten something in the car, and the wife just turned around and sorry, I'm not, it's not wives versus husbands, but turned around and said something, and you could tell it was totally made him feel like a little tiny, a little ant. And I felt so bad for that guy, man. He went back to the car and then came back, and I was like, wow, that. I don't know if she even realized it, but it took his manhood and just crushed it. And those words can definitely have some really negative impact on your husband's confidence, really.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we talk about how women have this power, to be able to influence their husbands in such a way where we could either build you up or we can tear you down. And we could do that not by strength, but by words. Yeah. Right? Even just the way that we look at you. Yeah. I mean, she could have probably looked at him with disgust, and even that is contemptuous. Right. Right. And so, gosh, couldn't.
You have two things that are there, because you have that communication, the contentment, but then it's not private anymore. Yeah. It's public.
I mean, the fact that you saw it.
I saw it. They didn't know because I was in the car. And so that was kind of a different thing, but to humiliate somebody in that way, whether it be, husband or wife, in public too, it just takes it to that next level.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you have to remember that us, right, husbands and wives, we're equal, but with different roles. Mm-hmm. We're gifted in different ways. There are things that you do really, really well, and there are things that I do well.
Yes.
Right? And that was done on purpose.
Yeah.
And we're supposed to complement one another. We're supposed to build each other up. Mm-hmm. Technically, together, we should be better than we are alone. So one Amen. Of us should not make the assumption that somehow God created us to be superior mm-hmm. over the other, because that's
totally wrong.
Totally wrong.
Mm-hmm.
It's false.
Mm-hmm.
And all it's doing is it's killing that connection between you and your spouse.
Right.
And that oneness, right, that you're supposed to experience. Right. The feeling of fighting side by side versus against each other, right?
And I think back to Ephesians 5, and it talks about husbands, love your wives, as Christ loved the church, and wives, respect your husbands. If we are
Amen.
Thinking about those things and, thinking about our spouse in that way, I need to love you. I need to show love. How can when I communicate to her, these next words that come out of my mouth are loving to her, that she can feel that, what, this man loves her to absolute death, right? And my wife respects me so much that, she will put all of her trust in me, mm-hmm. and she desires to encourage me and to make me the best husband and the best father that I can absolutely be. And if we're looking at it from that perspective, there will be no contentment whatsoever.
I should say,
mm-hmm.
because we have, a mix of male and female listeners, mm-hmm. contempt doesn't go just one direction.
No doubt.
I know that the examples that were given, it was women being contemptuous towards their husband, mm-hmm. but that can happen in the reverse. And so, being contemptuous is simply putting yourself in a place that's elevated above your spouse, and creating the assumption that you feel you are greater, better, mm-hmm. and superior to them.
Yeah.
So the third communication killer, and this one we know all too well as well, it's defensiveness, right? So when one of us brings up a concern or an issue,
pointing a finger at myself.
Yes, it's natural to feel defensive.
Yeah.
But, that defensiveness,
that one's so hard, Nadine. That one's like really, really difficult, because I'm a defensive guy. You know what I mean?
Well, you're a defensive back.
I'm a defensive back. And so when I think about like disruption, when I think about defense, it's like whatever you're trying to do, not you, I'm trying to disrupt whatever. And so I just feel like I need to, protect what I've done, you know what I mean, in some way, or justify it in a way, and that's not always the right thing to do.
Well, it shuts down the conversation. Mm-hmm. If I come to you and I say something like, babe, my feelings are hurt mm-hmm. because I feel like you ignored me when we were at that party. Right.
I didn't ignore you. Like, what are you talking about? I was paying attention to you the whole time, right? Or whatever.
Exactly.
Right?
Mm-hmm. So right there, you just shut down my feelings. Mm-hmm. You just told me, no, I didn't. End of conversation.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Rather than pausing and taking a moment to say, what? Oh, gosh, I'm so sorry mm-hmm. if I made you feel that way. Let's talk about how I may have done that.
Yeah.
And so rather than just shutting down, it reminds me, we've got three volleyball players in the family, our daughters. To me, it's like someone, going up and setting the ball over the net just to have someone like block it, or no, not even block it, but just spike it down, right? Like just a kill.
Right in your face.
Yeah, right in your face. Mm-hmm. And so it just completely shuts down the conversation. There's mm-hmm. no room for understanding each other. There's no room for active listening. There's no room for asking questions mm-hmm. to try to dig deeper. There's no room for empathy. There's no room for that.
Yeah.
Defensiveness. A lot of people think, well, I'm just defending myself, but I'm the victim here.
Right.
But that's not really what it is. Mm-hmm. All it does is it shuts down the conversation and eliminates the opportunity to prevent the conflict mm-hmm. or to understand the source of conflict so that you don't keep repeating it. Right. Now, I totally agree with that, because one of the things I think that definitely happens with defensiveness is you're so concerned about your feelings
that you forget that somebody else had a specific feeling that caused them to come to you in that moment. You know what I mean? And so it's like, okay, instead of me thinking about how that made me feel or how what I didn't really do, she must have misinterpreted what I said, which now made her feel a certain way. I need to stop thinking about that. And I say, okay, so whatever happened, it made her feel a certain way. So how was that? I mean, and so really start getting into understanding from her perspective. Okay, what happened? How are you feeling? How did I make you feel that way? And then let's talk through that. So maybe we can make this whole thing a lot better.
I have a tip that just popped into my head right now. Yeah. So you yourself, you admit that this is probably the area that you struggle with the most.
I do admit.
Yes. So it can be really challenging, not just for you. I'm sure it is for me too. And I'm sure it is for a lot of our listeners. But the best way to help you navigate through this, so defensiveness, even if that becomes your default response, you don't stay there, is by practicing empathy.
Yeah.
Just pausing and for a second, trying to get yourself to look at it from the perspective of your spouse.
How may they be thinking about this?
Yeah, because we want to protect ourselves, right? And so that's natural. There's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
But when you're so busy making yourself the priority, protecting yourself, you're leaving your wife, you're leaving your spouse out in the cold. You're inside nice and warm and, in front of the fire feeling good because you've just protected yourself.
Yes.
In the meantime, your wife is out there saying, I am feeling alone. I am feeling cold. I am feeling, betrayed. I am feeling whatever it might be. And so if you just pause and take a moment to empathize with how your wife might be feeling, and then with that mindset, try to understand what happened.
Yeah.
You guys may come to a point of clarity where you realize, oh my gosh, like she has a point here.
Yep.
I can see why she feels the way that she does. And there really isn't any need for me to feel defensive.
Yeah.
Right? Because she's not trying to hurt me. She's just trying to reach out to me.
Yeah. Or she could be totally wrong. Just kidding. But you know what?
We need to edit that one out.
The illustration that I had in my head, just to, in my mind, I was like, okay, this might help me as I think about these things. You said, oh, I'm leaving you out in the cold, and all that stuff. And I thought to myself, okay, so if it's cold outside and you got a jacket, and your wife does not have a jacket, would you leave her out there like that? Or would you take your jacket off and cover her? And that got me thinking, okay, so I'm thinking about her. I'm taking the attention from me and putting it on her, empathizing with her feelings. And so as I'm giving you the jacket, that basically means, okay, now start asking her the questions about, validating the feelings, asking her about how did we come to that point and those types of things. And I think that's going to help be helpful for me.
These podcast episodes always end up one way or another being like therapy for us.
No doubt. No doubt.
So the fourth communication killer is stonewalling.
Yeah.
Right. And so for those of you that follow Dr. John Gottman, all these will sound very, very familiar to you because the last four things that we've talked about, contempt, criticism, defensiveness, and now stonewalling, are actually the four things that make up the four horsemen, right? The four horsemen is basically relationship killers,
yep.
Right? We're calling them communication killers because they often happen in communication situations.
Yeah. And if one or four of these are present in your marriage, you need to get that thing out as soon as possible. It's like allowing the enemy to get a foothold into your marriage. And if you give him a toenail, then you'll get the rest of his foot in, and all of a sudden now you're dealing with a monster putting a wedge between you and your wife.
Yeah, absolutely. So stonewalling, this is when, it's funny because this has come up often in the past several weeks with the couples I've been working with, just, completely random different couples where stonewalling has been a big deal. And what Dr. Gottman has found in their studies is that it happens more often than not with men.
Yeah.
Right. It happens with some women, but the vast majority of the time it's men that experience the stonewalling.
Yes. But I would also say flooding turns into stonewalling, right? When you're flooded, that means you are done. Like your heart rate's up, your blood pressure's up, you're anxious, you know what I mean? You're frustrated, and you have no more words to say because I am absolutely done with you, right?
Yes.
So I think the flooding and the stonewalling come hand in hand.
It's actually true, because when you experience a lot of flooding, you tend to end up experiencing a lot of stonewalling.
Yeah, and flooding basically means you've gotten to the point where you are so overwhelmed with the conversation, the argument, all the things that are kind of coming at you. Maybe it's a lot of criticism or whatever the heck it is, and you're angry and frustrated, and you really have no more words to say. You're done with the conversation. You can't even bring anything constructive to it anymore.
You shut down, you stop talking, you disengage. And usually, so recently when I've been working with couples and this has come up, one of them, usually the women, is saying, I still want to talk about this topic and I can't get him to talk to me. And so she keeps pushing and pushing and pushing, and he keeps walking away and he has nothing to say anymore. And then that creates an even bigger conflict, right? They can't even communicate anymore.
Walking away from me.
Yeah, exactly. He's so overwhelmed, you know, by this point that he's like, I need you to stop. Right. And so in those situations, it really is the most helpful if you guys just, whether it's you come up with a safe word that says, hey, I'm feeling emotionally flooded, that I'm ready to stonewall, right? I'm ready to put up a literal stone wall between us, like that you're not going to be able to climb over it. You're not going to be able to, jackhammer your way through it. Is a stone wall that's right there, right? I'm ignoring you. And so you come up with a safe word and say, look, I need 20, like I need 20 minutes to go and self-soothe. I need to go do something, whether it's
go for a walk, go take a nap, whatever. I mean, just something that just get a little quiet time. I think for us, we've chosen to just go in our corners, our respective corners, and get into prayer, because honestly, we need, in those situations, especially when your heart rate is up, you need to get your heart rate down, you get your blood pressure down, you need to, start to feel like a lot more calmer. Those are times when you need to have time with the Lord in prayer and ask for the Lord to kind of clear your mind, help you to be open-minded in the conversation, and really be thoughtful of your wife. I would be speaking for myself, be thoughtful of my wife, and be praying for the solution that you're both are seeking, right? Which is just a resolution, and, a common resolution to whatever's going on.
Babe, I was thinking of the 4 communication killers, or the 4 horsemen. The thing about stonewalling that I think is different from the other ones is this is the one that both partners are equally responsible for, right? They both have to recognize it and take ownership of it, because once one of them gets to the point of stonewalling, the other one needs to help them get out of it. Help them recognize that. And the way to recognize that is really to back off, like give them some space and say, you know what? I recognize that this argument, this conflict has gotten pretty heated, and we both need to just walk away for a minute. Yeah.
Otherwise, it's the equivalent of keep on pushing that button. You keep pushing the button. You already know they're hot, and you keep pushing the button, and it's just gonna make it worse. You don't want a good You don't want a good end to this, do you? Because you keep pressing that button.
No, and it's just adding fuel to the fire. Yeah. Right, adding fuel to the fire. And we were gonna stop at just 4, but there's actually one other thing that I think we need to add to the communication.
What's that?
And that's disrespect.
Yeah.
Right? Disrespect. It doesn't matter if it's the man or the woman, right? And gosh, you guys are partners in life. You are married to each other. At the very least, speak in a respectful way.
Right, yeah.
Right? Because, when we talk about the heart rate that gets elevated, that results in the flooding, disrespect will initiate that so quickly, like far more quickly than anything else. But, just recognizing that you guys are meant to be doing life together as a team. This is the person that at one time, as angry as you may be in this moment, at one time you loved that person enough to stand in the altar and commit to spending the rest of your life through sickness and health, right? Richer, poorer, whatever it might be, for the rest of your lives.
Till death do us part.
Yeah, till death do you part. And it may come sooner than you probably wanted.
If you keep disrespecting.
So,
right.
But at one time, you guys were so in love. Like, don't forget that.
Yeah.
So at the very least, whatever the conflict may be, whatever issue you guys are dealing with, process through it, work through it, communicate through it with respect.
Amen.
And that will get you so far in your communication efforts, right?
I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
I think they all build on each other, honestly. I mean, they're all intertwined in some sort of way. And I really feel like they all, in the end, it's about disconnecting with yourself and your own feelings and trying to understand your wife or your husband's feelings in a deeper way. Because once you're able to do that, I'm just telling you, the verse, but it's talking about how don't do anything in selfish ambition or vain conceit. Think of others as more important than yourselves. And I'm like, okay, well, but it also says, don't look only upon your own interests, because it goes back to that. Like, you still have your own interests. I know you're going to do that, do it, but also be cognizant of the other person's interests as well. And I'm like, okay, so if we do that, we're not going to be contempt, because we're going to be thinking about their feelings. We're not going to be defensive, because we're going to say, okay, well, I need to take my coat off and put it on her, right? We're not going to criticize in the same way that we did before. And then we're not going to, hopefully, if there is stonewalling there, we'll have time to pause and reflect, pray, and then come back.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if people practice these things, like if they look out for these communication killers and then practice the antidotes for them, right? I think that people will find that not only are they communicating better, but they're experiencing fewer and fewer conflicts in their relationship. I mean, not to say that it's going to eliminate conflict, but they'll just experience fewer and fewer, and the impact of the conflict becomes less and less.
Yes. I think through this, you kind of have to, I mean, the more you know about yourself and the more you know about each other, the better you're going to be about, resolving conflict. We're not, like you said before, we're not always going to avoid fights or arguments or anything like that, but we'll be a lot better at squashing it. And I think that's important.
Absolutely. Well, we hope you enjoyed today's episode. Thanks for listening, and join us next time for more tips and advice on how to build a stronger and happier, purpose-driven marriage. Have a great day.